Derivatives, just to recap some basics, you've seen this a lot. What is a derivative? It derives value from an underlying asset. Okay. The focus in this set of notes is looking at this, the swaps. Alright, so the swaps are actually the most widely used because it's very seldom do you see a win-win situation in the investment world. Okay, it's normally, they call it a zero-sum game. Okay, you might have seen that in other chapters, well, I don't know if they've discussed it in this textbook, but in other textbooks they do. Okay, zero-sum meaning
no one gains, no one loses.
Someone will win, someone will lose. Okay. There shouldn't be arbitrage in inverted commas. Okay, here you've got a scenario where you can win and I can win. We can both win, and a swap is how we do that. Okay, so what is a swap? It's looking at what? We mentioned it last week in the assignment. Yes, future. But is it a cash flow or cash flows?
Cash flow.
Yeah, it's a series of cash flows, future cash flows. Right, so it's agreement between two parties to exchange future cash flows. Okay, a stream of cash flows. So, for example, okay, you did do risk with me when I did the 2601 when it was before. Yes. Okay, and then we spoke about those examples. I think I might even have it in here. Yes, yeah, fixed and float. Okay, good. So it's the rate that you're trying to how can I say, structure your cash flows in terms of what will happen in the future based on what you have now. Okay, so what can we swap? There's a lot, basically. Okay, so interest rates, currencies, anything that has some sort of future stream of cash flow. So why do we swap? Risk management and structuring. Okay, you're creating your own cash flow, if that makes sense. Yeah. All right. So if you're not happy with your cash flow, but your floating is more favorable than your fixed, you can maybe swap it with something. Okay, or swap it with someone, right? A different institution. Okay. So the key is it's a win-win situation. There's a mutually beneficial relationship here. Okay, so that's why swaps are so popular, because you win, I win, it's a no-brainer. All right, as long as both companies or entities are going to be gaining something from that relationship, they're going to obviously want to enter into an agreement, okay, a swap. All right, so the characteristics, exchanging a series of future payments. Okay, that's some of the characteristics that we need to know in terms of what a swap is. At inception, what happens? Well, neither party pays an amount. Why do we have that? It's similar to one of the other derivatives we looked at.
Because the contract doesn't have any value.
And it also doesn't create
You don't create risk
unfair,
scenarios, I suppose.
well, profit in a way, unfair profit. If someone gets paid out initially for nothing,
Like an option, and it doesn't have this.
okay, that would be,
It has a value at the start of the contract.
what?
An option.
Why do you say an option has value at the start of the contract?
Premium at the beginning of the option. Versus.
Okay, you've paid a premium for
Doesn't say
an option, but the option might not have any value.
No, if you change.
You've paid for the right. Yes, okay, so you've bought something, exactly, yeah. So if you're buying an option, you're buying the right.
But here,
The option might not have any value, but it would hopefully gain value depending on what happens in the market, yes, okay. Right, so why is there no value to start with?
There's nothing.
Arbitrage.
Yeah,
Okay, it's to avoid that. Okay, remember, derivatives are priced according to what we think is going to happen in the future, based on what we know today. Right, and when we have that scenario, you could possibly have situations where arbitrage will arise because you'll have a view and they'll have a view. Okay, what you base your calculation on could be slightly different to what they base their calculation on, and that could give rise to a gain, okay, a profit. Okay, that's why hedge funds do that. I don't know if you were in the class when I spoke about Bridgewater. Were you? And Ray Dalio, does that ring any bells? Not at all. Okay. Okay, so you might have been in the other class or a different class when I had that in the one semester. I'll talk about it now because it's relevant to this. Okay, who is Warren Buffett?
He owns, no, don't tell me. Berkshire Hathaway.
Okay, what is Warren Buffett's claim to fame, inverted commas? Okay, so Warren Buffett is like the godfather of value investing. Okay, he's made millions and billions through value investing. Okay, buying assets and holding them for a long period of time. Okay, he buys businesses that he likes, and he buys like utilities, okay, things that people need, okay, and are always going to be using. Right. So Ray Dalio, he is the godfather of hedge fund investing. Okay, that's who he is. Okay, and Ray Dalio, if you Google Ray Dalio, you'll see. I even showed it the one semester. So you weren't in that class in that semester, but I showed a part of the video called, it was Ray Dalio about the business cycles. Okay, Ray Dalio's philosophy on investing. Okay, it was about business cycles in the market. Okay, and Ray Dalio, like he's the Warren Buffett of hedge funds. Okay, he owns the biggest hedge fund in the world. Okay, Bridgewater is a company based in the US, and they focus on that. Okay, making profit in any situation, and they're looking at arbitrage, mispricing. They're all like mathematicians, statisticians, and they're just crunching numbers day in and day out, looking for opportunities to generate above average return in the form of arbitrage. Okay, so Buffett owns Berkshire Hathaway, Ray Dalio owns Bridgewater. Okay, and Bridgewater, they're the biggest hedge fund, and they don't deal with private individuals. They only deal with companies, okay, institutions. Right, so they're not interested in private investors. They because of the amount of capital that they're dealing with. Okay, because for arbitrage to be, let's say, profitable, you need huge amounts of capital, right? Because 17 cents, you're not going to make money with 17 cents as a mispricing, but 17 cents for a billion, a few billion is a lot. Okay, so that's what they're looking at. They're looking at arbitrage. So that's Ray Dalio. He's the godfather of hedge fund investing. Okay, he's the Warren Buffett of hedge funds, basically. Warren Buffett doesn't run a hedge fund. He runs asset management. Okay, he's more an asset manager. Ray Dalio, he's a hedge fund manager. Okay, it's a slightly different profession, but both in the investment world. Okay, all right. So terminology: you get the settlement date and you get the settlement period. What's the difference?
Settlement date is the date of payment. Period is between the payments, between the settlement payments.
Okay, termination date. Can early termination apply?
Yes.
Okay. Swaps are almost exclusively over the counter. Why?
Because they're specialized.
Yes. Good. Okay, they're customized. Okay, they're very, very unique. Right, so no two swaps will be the same. Right, there's no regulated market for swaps because there's no exchange for them. Okay, so swaps are subject to default risk. Why? You've got party A and you've got party B, and they're entering into an agreement, okay, where they're swapping certain payments. Okay, so that could be like, for example, a high net worth individual, right? And they can access funds at a lower interest rate. Okay, how can you benefit? Well, they can take out a loan for you, and you would pay off the loan for them, or you'd pay off the interest for them. Right, so it's a win-win situation because you're both going to be receiving a benefit, right? Because they would be able to receive interest payments from you that'll be higher than what they would have received, had they
left the money there.
Had they not entered into the agreement, Okay. All right, so yes, early termination can apply, and we need to look at this. Okay, there's some of the reasons. Okay, so we know derivatives are used for strategizing. Okay, so I'm taking a position based on what I think will happen in the future. Okay, or I might want to reduce risk as much as possible. Okay, so that's strategy. Okay, so you might take out certain derivative products to help mitigate or reduce risk. Okay, so reasons to swap: obviously to hedge or modify an existing asset or liability. Hedging, remember, means taking the opposite position. Okay, so a hedge would be I'm going long, but I need some security short. Okay, so you might want to hold the asset, okay, because the asset should appreciate in value, but then you'll take out an option to sell. Okay, as almost like insurance on,
If it doesn't go up.
yes, okay, on unfavorable market conditions. Okay, right, because now you're going to win both ways. Okay, you're still holding onto the asset, the physical asset, but we can create some options. Okay, all right. So to adjust or sculpt an existing cash flow. Okay, remember we can derive the cash flow we want. Okay, in terms of customizing a contract. We can also look at value, okay, in the market, structure value in the market. We can look at accessing markets artificially. Okay, so before you might not have been able to secure a very favorable floating rate, but now just because the bank won't give me a favorable floating rate, I'll find an institution that will give me a favorable floating rate. Okay, because they would probably have a better relationship with the bank. So for an institution to get favorable rates with the bank would be easier than, let's say, an individual or a smaller company. So a smaller company could enter into a swap agreement with a larger company. Okay, and then to improve the cosmetics of the contract. Okay, obviously we need to make things a bit better. Okay, in terms of, let's say, it's almost like, what do they call it? There's a specific word. A sweetener. That's it. Okay, a sweetener. Okay, to make the deal go down a little bit better. Okay, so all deals need sweeteners. Okay, to make them a bit more, let's say, attractive to the potential investor. Okay, right, that's like the business case that you need to sell. Okay, all right. Characteristics of a swap contract: simple interest rates. Okay, floating versus fixed. Here's a swap example in terms of exchanging payments. Okay, so this example was one that I've looked at before, so you're probably familiar with it. Okay, so borrower 1 and borrower 2. Okay, we've got a retailer and we've got a financial institution. All right, looking at that scenario, who is in a better position?
The financial institution.
Yes. Okay, why?
Oh, they've got a lower fixed rate and they've got a lower floating rate.
Exactly. For that institution, money is cheaper. Okay, fixed rate versus prime. Here, prime plus and 17%. Okay, so in all scenarios, borrower 2 is in a much better position than borrower 1. Okay, so what can borrower 2 do to maximize profit or wealth for that company? They can enter into a swap with that company, right, to help the company. So it might be a way to, let's say, improve relations with that particular institution or company, but also it could be a way to profit in terms of a premium that would be payable from retailer to financial institution. Okay, so when are swaps advantageous?
When it's very expensive, you need to borrow.
Okay, yes, when there's a big differential. Okay, so differentials are differences between rates or anything. Okay, what's the gap? Okay, so in South Africa we've got higher interest rates than other countries. Okay, so the interest rate differential for emerging market, let's say, countries compared to developed countries are big in terms of scope, right? Because our rates are higher than their rates. Okay, so those are differentials. Okay, differences in amounts. Okay, so here I've got a 4.5 differential between fixed, okay, and I've got a 0.75 differential between floating. Right, so which has the highest differential?
The fixed interest rates.
Okay, the 4.5 being the fixed, and that's why we can use a swap. Okay, so swaps will only apply if there's a very big differential. It wouldn't make any sense to enter into a swap with 0.75%. Okay, the most you might get away with is maybe 2.5%. Okay, is that enough to have to enter into an agreement to get lawyers to draw up this contract just for 0.25%? Probably not. Yeah. Okay, so 4.5, now it makes a bit more sense. Okay, because now even if we pay the lawyers 1% of the deal, okay, we're still coming away with 3.5%. Okay. All right, so what is a swap? Well, let's have a look at this scenario. What would borrower 1 do? Borrower 1 was the retailer, remember?
Okay.
What would borrower 1 do?
He would want to make...
Let's structure it. So how would you structure the swap?
Well,
What loan would borrower 2 have to take out?
that's what I'm checking.
What loan would borrower 1 have to take out?
Okay, well, borrower 1, if borrower 1 takes fixed, then borrower 2 has to take floating. Right?
Yes.
Are we doing fixed for floating?
Yes.
Not fixed versus fixed. Okay.
Yes. Well, it has to be fixed and floating because you've got a differential to take advantage of.
Yeah. So borrower 1, if they take out a fixed rate loan.
But why would borrower 1 want to take out
Would-
fixed at
They want to
17?
take out a floating.
Yes.
They would take out a floating.
Okay,
Well,
they
depending
would-
on what prime is, though.
Irrespective of prime, all right, we're just looking at this, right?
Yeah.
Prime is 8.5. Okay,
Right.
so
So they would definitely want to take floating.
Who?
Borrower 1.
yes, okay, so they would take out
The floating.
floating.
And then borrower 2 would have to take a fixed.
Yes, okay, could it work the other way around? No.
well,
Okay, if you take 17%, you're taking the highest.
Yeah, you wouldn't do
Right, you need to look at the lowest. Okay, so the only opportunity here for a swap would be between fixed and floating, for borrower 2 being fixed and borrower 1 being floating. Okay, there's an opportunity to profit, okay, in terms of a win-win situation for both parties. Alright, so that's the next bit. Borrower 1 will borrow at floating, borrower 2 will borrow at fixed. Okay, why? Because of the differential. Right. Each will agree to pay the other's interest payments. Okay, they're swapping. Okay, so borrower 1 will pay this as a premium, 3.5. Obviously, 4.5 would have been the maximum that you would consider, but then no one would end with something positive.
Because that's the differential.
Yes, that's the differential. So it must be below the differential. The differential would cap the potential gain on a swap. Okay, so that's what we're looking at currently. Why do I say that? Well, there's the note. We spoke about it. Reason, floating is less than fixed. And here, borrower 1 wants fixed payments. Okay. Alright, so that's structuring the swap. Okay, so identifying the scenario, interpreting the scenario, and then coming up with the solution. Okay. Alright, so what will happen? So here's the what will happen. Okay. Borrower 1 is going to do what?
Borrower 1 is going to
Pay borrower 2's
floating.
floating, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, borrower 2,
Pay borrower... No.
no, borrower
will
1,
pay borrower 2's fixed.
yes.
And borrower 2 will pay borrower 1's floating.
Correct, okay.
And borrower 1 must have a premium as well.
Exactly, yes. Okay, so if I look at borrower 1, borrower 1 is going to end up spending 16%, okay, on fixed. How much are they
1%.
saving? 1%. Okay, because their fixed would normally have been 17%. Okay, so that's the effective. Okay, so borrower 1's effective rate is 16%. Okay, are they going to complain with a 1% reduction in their interest rates? No. And if this is fixed, it's probably going to be taken for assets of a few million perhaps. Okay, so 1% on a few million is a good saving. Okay. Borrower 2. They're going to be paying borrower 1's floating. Right? But borrower 1's floating is higher than their own. Do you agree? Okay. But they get a premium. Okay, so effectively they've reduced their floating, which is even less than the prime.
8.5.
Yeah, prime was 8.5. Alright, so borrower 2 would have been able to reduce their effective floating rate products, okay, that they would take out, okay, by 2.25%? No, 1.75. to make that 8.5. Yeah. Okay, 8.5 minus that. All right. So what benefit does each company get?
They get the same. They get
Okay. How much does one get?
okay, so one get 1%.
Yes. And what does 2 get?
Borrower 2 get 1.75%, so it's a 2.75%.
Okay, so borrow one's benefit, let's answer that question.
1%.
1%. Okay, the 17 minus 16 is the 1%. Because remember, they pay the 12.5 and the 3.5.
3.5, correct.
Okay, borrow 2.
Borrower 2 gets a 1.75% saving.
2.75.
2.75.
Yeah, okay, the maths,
Yeah.
just the difference.
The 8 is the 8.5 less than 5.75.
Yes. Okay. Right. So that's the benefit. That's the takeaway that borrow 2 would get, because borrow 2 pays prime plus, but less the 3.5 premium. Okay. So the benefit is actually 2.5%. Okay. Is that right? Okay. Right. You can get currency swaps. What is a currency swap?
When you swap euros with dollars.
Yes. Okay. And why would we want to do that?
Because cash flows generally, if you're getting.
Okay. Besides that,
Because you're guaranteeing the rates as well.
you're not guaranteeing any rate. You're guaranteeing currency.
Currency, yeah.
Okay. So you're swapping.
In 6 months' time. So
Yeah.
the next 3 months, every 3 months.
Swap. Yes. Exactly. Okay. Because you want dollars. Someone else wants rands. Okay. So a swap could be, well, give me your future dollars. I'll give you my future rands. Are you happy with your dollars and happy with your rands? Yes. Okay. And then obviously you need to agree on
Rates between them.
an exchange when you swap. Okay. So what are we going to swap the currency at?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So companies operating in different locations enter into swap agreements because currency can be swapped. Okay, and there's a nice example on page 274, which we'll discuss just now, okay, where they're looking at swapping payments, okay, or replicates the issuance and purchase of bonds. Okay, it replicates. Replication means almost like creating it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. With this example, what other advantages exist for both parties concerned? I think I've got a note here.
Well, they don't
No.
have to. Just trying to think now. I think I've read this.
Have you read this already? Okay, so let's go to page 274
This is
then.
the one where they don't have to issue the bond, but they get the cash flows between the euros and the. Is this one? I think it's this one. I've read it.
Yeah, there's 274. Yeah, this was the currency swap. Okay, yeah, this was looking at the interest payments between these two organizations. All right, yeah, you're looking at euros and dollars. Yes. Okay, so if we're looking at other advantages, I think they gave you a summary at the end here. Let's quickly go to the last few pages. Did they?
No, they give them an example all the way up until. Oh, wait, yeah, page 278 is where.
Yes. Okay, there.
That's types of swap. That's netting. And then you can net out the fixed or the floating, you can net out.
Okay, it was the credit risk in terms of what we spoke about earlier in terms of other. So what else could I do what other reasons why would I use a swap is obviously credit risk could be a factor. Okay, so if I have, so for example, if you look here on page 275, they said here at the bottom, TGT has effectively used a dollar-denominated bond and converted it to a euro-denominated bond. In all likelihood, it can save on interest expense by funding its need for euros in this way, because TGT is better known in the US. Okay, so do you agree it's going to be difficult for you to raise capital in a specific country where no one knows about your business? Okay, but a specific company operating in that environment would be easy for them to raise that capital. All right, and that's another advantage. Okay, because you're unfamiliar. Right, so companies also do that. Okay, and also obviously, okay, you'll see here they also said it's swap dealer DB. Okay, it's probably Deutsche Bank. Okay, I think they said that earlier.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Knows TGT well, and also obviously has a strong presence in Europe. Thus, DB can pass its own advantage in the Eurobond markets to TGT. Okay. In addition, had TGT issued a euro-denominated bond, it would have assumed no credit risk. Okay. By entering into the swap, TGT assumes a remote possibility of DB defaulting. Thus, TGT saves a little money by assuming some credit risk. Okay. So it's also a way to reduce risk. Okay, so other advantages could be for what we mentioned there in terms of different locations, different companies. Certain companies are more popular than others, and also risk in terms of credit risk, and possibly other as well in terms of maybe exchange rate risk or currency rate risk, interest rate risk perhaps. Okay, could be other reasons why we would want to maybe consider the swap. Okay. Alright, then we've got plain or vanilla swaps. Okay, plain means ordinary. Okay, so these aren't special. Okay, vanilla ice cream is plain, it's boring. Yeah, okay, there's no, besides vanilla, there's no real extra flavoring.
It's the most common.
It's the most common, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so interest rate swaps are swaps that are what?
They're swapping an interest rate.
Yes, okay. Rates that are going to be exchanged. Okay, future payments of those liabilities. Okay, so a plain swap is an interest rate swap involving a fixed and a floating rate. Okay, so what did we look at earlier? It was a vanilla interest rate swap. Okay, it's the most common in the derivative market. Why? Who benefits in the swap? Exactly. Okay, both parties benefit. Right, and that's why it's so common. Right, because it's unheard of. I mean, if you talk about the investment world, right, it can get quite, how can I say, competitive, because one institution, all right, will profit off another institution's loss. Exactly. Okay, and that's how it works, unfortunately. Right, so in a swap type of arrangement, both parties win. Right, and that's why it's so popular. Okay, all right, so here's an example. Suppose borrower X can obtain 2 million for 10 years at floating. Okay, borrower Y can obtain floating at a prime rate, prime and a fixed rate of 15. Okay, borrower X and Y agree to enter into a swap in which borrower X agrees to pay an additional 2%. Right, I want to know what the swap relationship looks like and who benefits.
Sorry,
Okay.
I missed the slide here. Sorry, I missed the slide here. Yes, okay, I'll take 2 million.
Yeah, so one for you to try as a working.
Borrow X. Oh, thank you. Borrow's going to take 2 million.
Yeah, so try it. It's similar to what we had earlier. Just think about it. I've tried to give you as much information as I can here in terms of the potential swap opportunity to exchange floating and fixed. What would the actual amounts be?
X is obviously going floating, and Y is going fixed. Okay, so X agrees to just borrow X agrees to pay additional. So borrower X will be paying 17% to borrower Y. Correct.
Okay, borrower X fixed.
So borrower X would be loaning prime plus 0.8.
Borrower X would be
And then they're going to
prime plus 8, yes, and swapping with?
and then 15%.
Yes, okay, so Y, good. So that's what you've identified, great. So you've got the first bit. That's the first bit.
That's then you've got to look at actually what they're paying.
Okay, look at the differentials first.
Oh, okay, I can do that. It's 3% on fixed.
Yes. And
And
prime is
0.8%.
floating. That's the differential, yes.
Sorry.
Okay, so is there an opportunity to swap?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and how much was the negotiated premium?
2%.
2%. So there is a differential that will provide for that 2% premium. Okay, so on the next slide, what would the agreement look like?
So, X would pay 15 plus 2%. He would pay 17%. Alright? Yeah. Yeah, because they're borrowing at prime, so you will pay the 17%.
Correct.
And Y will pay the prime plus 0.8 less the 2% premium that he's got. Where is prime?
It doesn't matter what prime is. Prime can fluctuate.
Plus 0.8 minus
Yeah, because remember, prime will always fluctuate.
Yeah.
But does that matter?
No. Just
No.
as long as you got the...
Okay. Well, the prime will fluctuate, but it actually will matter if it reaches a certain level. If prime becomes more than fixed, then it would obviously affect.
The differentials.
Yes. Okay.
Would make sense.
All right. So, is there maximum premium possible?
There is.
What is the maximum premium possible?
Well, if we're doing a fixed, it would be 3%.
Yes. Okay. It's limited by the differential. All right. So, what is the benefit for each party?
Sorry, I've mixed up my notes here. So the benefit is, okay, so X is paying, let me just write this down, X is paying 17%, and Y is paying
17%? No. Where are you getting 17? 15.
That's 2%.
Oh, yes. Okay, yes. Plus the 2%. Sure.
Okay, so there's 17.
Okay.
Right, okay. So X is gaining 1%, 18 less than 17.
Yeah, you've got the 17. That's fine.
Okay, so I've got 17.
Okay, let's look at Y first before we look at the benefits.
Okay, Y is going to get prime plus 0.8 minus 2%.
Which is a benefit of how much?
I don't know, because I don't know what prime is.
You don't need prime. He's paying
Yeah.
plus 8, 0.8.
Yeah, so it'd be 1.2.
So the net effective would be negative 1.2, yes.
Negative 1.2.
Okay, it's a reduction in the rate that he's going to be paying, yeah.
So 1.2%
Okay.
and this would be 18. So price is still remaining this.
That's good.
Prime minus 1.2%.
Yeah, the negative 1.2. So you've reduced your prime by 1.2%. Is that one alright?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. On the next slide, types of swaps. Okay, you've got everything, or
Yeah, just
just that last bit. Okay. Alright, so types of swaps. We spoke about interest rate swaps, vanilla swaps. Here we've got equity swaps. Okay, so returns on equity can be volatile. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay, so companies can convert floating payments to fixed payments by entering into a swap. Okay, returns are paid over to the other party. Those are variable. Okay, and a constant payout is received by the other party, which is fixed. Okay, so you're changing variable returns to fixed. Okay, you're structuring an agreement that both parties would benefit from. Okay. Note, an equity position is now viewed as fixed income. Okay, which is a completely different chapter altogether, but you've now made equity a form of fixed income asset.
Because you've fixed
Okay.
set payment.
Because you've swapped certain payments. Okay. Other swaps that can arise, commodities, okay, and other. Right, so how do we price all of this? Well, again, there's always going to be equations. Okay, so we need to just remember which equations do I need to use to work out certain things. Okay, so if I'm looking at pricing and valuation of swaps, I'm focusing on what?
The actual swap contract.
The contract, exactly. Okay, I'm looking at what is the actual contract worth. Okay, not what the future cash flows are going to be. Okay, so swaps will only have value over the life of the contract. Why only over the life?
Because they won't carry value at the beginning, because nobody changes hands, and obviously at termination, they won't carry value.
Exactly.
So they're not there anymore.
Exactly. Okay, so pricing swaps must avoid arbitrage always. Okay, we know all derivatives need to avoid arbitrage. Swaps will be priced according to the underlying asset. Okay, and time value of money will definitely apply. It applies to everything. Okay, so this is a fixed swap interest payment. Okay, that's what we're trying to work out. Right, and how do I get that? I need to look at present valuing. Okay, so present value factor, okay, we'll see it just now, okay, for the actual, let's say, underlying, okay, that's going to be swapped in the future. Right, the present value for a swap, market value, not the present value, the market value of a swap would be the spot, okay, and we're looking at the underlying asset. Right, so what is the spot on the underlying asset compared to what the value is going to be in the future? Okay, all of those amounts, those payments. All right, so variations of swaps. Are all swaps the same? No. Okay, there's a lot of different types of swaps. Right, constant maturity, overnight index, amortizing, accrediting, index, diff swaps, arrears, capped, floored. There's a lot. Okay, swaptions are what?
An option to get a swap.
No.
Traded on a swap.
Okay, yes. Swaps with options.
Yeah.
Okay, swaption. Okay, you see how creative these things get?
I know.
Because banks can make any product they want.
Exactly.
Okay, and that's why you have the crisis.
Exactly.
Because things get created from other things, and then
And
more
those
things
are created from those things.
get created more. Yeah, so here's a perfect example of a derivative of a derivative.
On a property derivative. So
Well,
that's
it's an option on a swap. Yeah, we've just got two.
Yeah.
Okay, but now you could maybe have options on swaptions. Can you imagine? Okay, and that's why we get very complicated valuations, and people get in a situation where they don't know what value is. Now, how do you estimate? I mean, how would you value an option on a swaption?
I don't
Okay,
even know where to get started.
you see, and that's the problem they had during the crisis. They were trying to estimate value of those companies that were going to go bankrupt. No one actually knew how much, okay, let's say bad loans were in the system, because no one actually knew how to value all of this stuff. Okay, because it was deriving value for all other loans that were deriving value from other loans, and they were like swaps and all sorts of derivatives to try to reduce risk. It was a big mess. Okay, so swaptions, an option to enter into a swap. Okay, used by parties who anticipate the need for a swap in the future. Okay, provides the option to terminate the swap. Okay, so do you need to exercise? No, you don't have to. Okay, remember, options give you the right, but not the obligation.
It's early termination.
Okay, well, when you say early termination,
You could use the swaption as an option to early terminate a swap agreement, as a way to early terminate. You didn't have to.
Okay, yes. Okay, so sure. Okay, so yeah, if you wanted to, like you said, end that particular arrangement, you could.
Yeah.
Okay, and then used by parties to speculate, obviously, on interest rates.